on the KLR going to drop a box off downtown, Avenue A, 14th Street. But the KLR's been starting right up, so I guess it's going to require some further investigation. Maybe something was going on, I don't know. Something weird. So yeah, I had a service call yesterday. Man, I woke up like feeling all depressed today because I normally don't get a lot of these, but I handled it as best I could. It was on the Upper East Side in a brand new building, and it was just a very wealthy woman, probably in her 40s. She had a lot of plastic surgery and Botox. She looked like puffy lips, you know, the whole nine, real high maintenance, you know. And I went in there, and I saw from the work order that it was going to be a problem. Like, I could tell from the work order, but it didn't look good, because it was like 2 Ring cameras not working because Wi-Fi was changed, and I was just like, well, I don't know, this doesn't look right. And then when I got there, she was totally frantic. She was saying that the Ring cameras were working before. It's just a very simple, she said, you just need to change the Wi-Fi they're using. Well, it wasn't that simple, because when I started looking at the Ring cameras, they weren't, I don't know if the batteries were in charge or something, but the cameras weren't powering on at all. So I was thinking to myself, you know, what the heck's going on here? These Rings are real simple. I mean, I would consider Ring to be, wireless Ring cameras are end user setup. You know, like the only cameras that I go to a house to install are Ring hardwired cameras or Ring hardwired doorbell, because you have to make sure you have 16 volts AC. Sometimes people have an old doorbell system that's not even working, and they try to hook up the Ring hardwired Ring Pro to that, and it doesn't work as it should, you know. But basically, the Ring Pro kit is what I'm used to doing installs for, and I saw that these were Ring wireless, and I was getting a little nervous because, you know, that stuff is really simple. But it turns out this one was totally nuts. Like, when I started like looking at the camera, I was like, look at the camera's not even lighting on when you put the battery into it. I take the battery out of it and put it back in, and it should light up. And she said, oh, what did you do to it? And I said, no, nothing, I'm telling you. So we looked at the other camera that wasn't working, the Ring, and it was the same exact thing. I said, are these batteries charged? And she said, I think so. And then she just started freaking out. She was like, no, all this stuff was working before you touched it. And I was like, no, wait, I was here because your stuff was not working. That's why you put the service call in. And she just started freaking out. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of her freaking out, she screamed, oh my God, there's smoke. And then we ran into the kitchen, and her oven, she had pizza in there, and it was on fire. Like, and then she threw the fire extinguisher at me and said, I can't use this, put it out. And then so I put the fire out, and everything was fine. And then she started screaming, there would have been a fire if it hadn't been for you asking all these questions. You should have, you know, I'm used to people just doing what I tell them. And I was like, all right. Now, at that point, I just said, ma'am, I'm leaving. And she was like, what? And, you know, she was like, you can't just leave, you know. And she started freaking out even more. And I said, no, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And then she started totally wigging. She got on the phone, was screaming on the phone about me being there, and then she was screaming about this guy's taking an hour to put his I don't know if she was talking to police or something, I have no idea. And she was saying this guy's taking an hour to put his shoes on. Get out of my house! She was screaming, just screaming at me, and she was totally insane. And you know, I got out of there in the hallway. I had one shoe on. I just got out of there, but it was actually, you know, I thought it wasn't going to bother me. I thought it'd be no big deal, but I woke up this morning totally depressed, and I couldn't even get out of bed. Like I don't know what happened. I guess it just got to me. I thought it was no big deal. It was just like, because you should just be able to brush shit like that off. But I guess I couldn't brush it off as good as I thought, because I just woke up like totally depressed, like over-analyzing things and just thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing? But I pick up these calls sometimes on the message board, and I take them, because they pay $40 an hour or $45 depending if it's Mac, and then Ring Pro stuff they pay $50. So I thought it was, I take that stuff sometimes. The Ring Pro stuff is usually really spot on. Like we'll get they'll clear the client to make sure. Oh, those things are cool. People just like run around on those things. But anyway, Ring Pro is usually spot on. Like I never have a problem with it. That wasn't a Ring Pro though. That was Geeks on Site. I stopped doing TaskRabbit because TaskRabbit is actually ridiculous. Like a client like that was not TaskRabbit. That was Geeks on Site, by the way, which was fine. And actually, Geeks didn't have a problem at all. Like they messaged me and said, "You got a customer with a mental breakdown. Don't worry about it. Just put your work order in about what happened, call it a day." But the thing was, like, the TaskRabbit, you have to be careful. Like, TaskRabbit, you definitely have to be careful. Like, it's not simple. The TaskRabbit I've had issues with, like, whereas if you turn down a job on TaskRabbit, if you turn down a TaskRabbit job, you got to turn it down properly. Otherwise, it goes against your what they call metrics. And that's why I stopped using it, because people in New York most of the time they're pretty decent people, but once in a while you'll run into some scary ass people like that woman. If you run into someone like that and you're doing TaskRabbit, you're gonna have a big problem, because you can't just run out of there. Like you've got to resolve it with the customer. Otherwise, if TaskRabbit calls and says, speaks to the client and they say that it's unresolved, then they won't, not only will they not pay you for the time going there, your gasoline, everything's out, but they will also go against your metrics. Yeah, so it goes against your metrics, which is terrible. Like, you don't want that. You definitely don't want that. Sometimes I forget how big this KLR is. When I was going between that fence and the car, I realized I only had like millimeters. So sometimes you forget. I forget like how big this KLR is actually. At least it's good weather, But anyway, getting back to that customer and the TaskRabbit, I don't recommend. I don't know what other people have encountered with TaskRabbit, but TaskRabbit is very difficult. Like Geeks, where if you have an insane client like that, you just get up and you walk out. You tell the customer, "I'm done. I gotta go." Like, you don't have to even discuss it with them. You just get your shit and get out. If you're dealing with like a total insane maniac, like she had a fire in her kitchen, like, and she's telling me that I'm at fault. Because I'm talking to her and she's not used to dealing with people that talk to her. She just tells them what to do and they do it, which is fine. But if you're dealing with a client now, I have customers that pay big money that they don't want to even talk to you at all about anything. That's a different story. But that woman is just paying $50 an hour for someone to come in and hook up cameras. Oh, by the way, she bought Blink cameras to replace the Ring cameras. Why, I don't know. But they were hardwired Blink, and she totally wigged. Like, I mean, it just went on and on. Like, I did what I could to try to save that, but then I walked out. I basically was already on my way out the door when she was blaming me for the fire. But I just continued to try to work out the situation. I tried to work out the situation, but it wasn't going to work out. Good. Yeah, basically, that's why that whole block was fucked up. There's just because of that right there, that one woman just double parked. But anyway, TaskRabbit, you can't just walk out of a customer, even if they're wigging on you. I guess you could, if you were physically worried about your well-being. Of course, you would just walk out. If someone was a maniac.